a Playlist original.
All to understand those 5 girls who, after all these years, we can't get out of our minds. It didn't matter in the end how old they had been, or that they were girls, but only that we had loved them.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson. For those of you that have been following our anniversary calendar, you guys may be aware that this is a leftover episode. The last one we had to do from the month of April. We're now, as of recording, we're into June 5th, and we still got a couple May episodes to get to you guys. Been a very busy calendar for both of us now that summer's here. A lot of more stuff going on, I think, for both of us than other seasons of the year, and obviously that kind of impacts movie watching. And speaking of which, so we're covering the Virgin Suicides today. I am about a week off this watch, so forgive me if there's lapses in my memory. Okay. I got IMDb opened up here, though, to help me fill in some gaps. In any case, I'm excited to cover it. It premiered April 21st of 2000, so we're celebrating its 25th anniversary. The debut of Sofia Coppola, daughter of Francis Ford Coppola. She, I think at this point, had done some short films and had already carved a path as a very fantastic up-and-coming director at this point when the Virgin Suicides premiered at Cannes Film Festival in 1999, and this is a very strong, confident debut from her. I haven't seen a lot of her, if anything else, actually, that she's directed.
You saw The Bling Ring. We covered it for on here. She directed that.
It doesn't sound. The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember watching it. Was I actually covering it?
Yeah. It was the one where the kids in LA were like breaking into like celebrities' homes, and
oh yes, that's right.
Emma Watson was in it.
Yes, I forgot that's what that was called.
It's a much different movie than this.
Yes.
Well, I guess in some ways it's not, because like it kind of deals with like youth culture, but in a different way. So it's like it's just tackling like a different aspect of adolescence. Like this one being I think having to do with a lot of with like repression and like a lot of that kind of stuff, and then The Bling Ring is kind of like dealing with like excess and kids who are obsessed with that kind of. So like different themes, but definitely. I guess aesthetically very different, and just like it didn't seem like something she would do considering how she started. Her films have been all over the place, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely, I have always been interested in Lost in Translation, which is her follow-up to this, and I've had it on DVD. It's one of the oldest movies in my collection, and I still have never come around to watching it. And then the movie she made a few years ago with Colin Farrell called The Beguiled, I've always really wanted to see too. That really caught my interest. But I think maybe now that I've seen this, I might try and seek out some of her other films. I've seen her act a couple of times. But she's always been a filmmaker that I admire. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Godfather Part 3 comes to
mind. She gets a lot of like, oh, thank God she transitioned into this.
Yeah, I think she's a wonderful filmmaker. She has a knack for it. I mean, being the daughter of one of the most successful and praised filmmakers of all time, probably lent some of his talents. And growing up, on movie sets, she had been acting since as a kid. I think she'd appeared in some of her father's films. So she was definitely destined, I think, for a career in film. And yeah, I think she is a pretty strong director. And I was in my digging for this movie, she had, as for like why she chose this as her debut, apparently she was gifted the book. This is adapted from a novel from 1993 by Jeffrey Eugenides. And she was gifted the book, read it, loved it, envisioned it as a movie. And apparently at the time that she started writing a script, she just kind of did it just because she liked the movie so much, and it was sort of a project for her. Not that she necessarily envisioned that her script would ultimately be made, but there was a studio that had a script already in development at the time, and she was disappointed to hear that. And ultimately, the studio wasn't happy with their script of it, and so she pitched them hers that she was working on, and that ultimately became the script for this movie. So I thought that was a really different kind of way of getting involved and having the start as a debut, I guess. It was a pretty neat origin story for her as a director.
Yeah, I thought so too. What I realized when I was watching this is that I had only seen bits and pieces of it before. Like I had never seen the whole thing, and like I didn't realize that until I was like, oh, I remember like maybe scenes that were like we were watching it, friends were watching it, and I might have just like come in the middle of, or it just be randomly on TV, and I saw like certain clips, or if I'm watching like retrospectives about certain people. I know Kirsten Dunst had a thing online when Civil War came out, and I think that's where I saw some of the scenes that she talked about this movie too.
Okay.
So I hadn't seen it in its entirety ever. I thought I had.
So this is a rare first time watch for both of us.
Yeah, and I always remember hearing about. Oh, yeah, I always remember hearing about it. I mean, that the title is intriguing itself, and
definitely.
I also knew other isolated things from it. Like my friend love the band Air, who did the music, so they used to always play this score a lot. So I knew that going in, and then like so there was like things I knew about the movie, I guess, that maybe feel like I had like watched it before, but I had never really seen it in its entirety. And I was very impressed with it. It felt like a dream, basically. Like it's shot really
the way it's shot, the color palette is very like angelic seeming. It paints the girls as very like elusive, like angelic. And like the whole,
I think Kirsten Dunst has described them as like ethereal. Like they didn't really feel like, they didn't really feel like,
exactly
like they felt very out of touch and like very, it was. I thought that was really interesting, and like, like if anything, she shows that she has a really strong visual style, and that's what I was kind of sucked into. And then the overall story, which I thought was interesting, because I was like, I guess like a lot of it is like open to interpretation as to why these things are happening with these girls, and like even like the narration is done by Giovanni Ribisi, like even they like all the guys trying to figure out like what why did these girls do the thing that they did, the lesbian girls and all that. And I think the movie does a good job of being like kind of planting seeds as to like, oh, this is what the reason is. And I really do think a lot of it has to do with like the kind of like repressed desires that they were kind of ashamed of because of like their parents and all that stuff, and like not being able to act on those things freely. And I think there's a lot of that's in it. And you kind of see that in their parents, who are trying so hard to shelter them and shield them from all these outside forces that might corrupt them. And in the end, I think that kind of is what leads them down this path of like where they go. Right. That's might be one interpretation of it, but that's kind of how I saw things a little bit when I was watching it.
I agreed, and I have lots to say too about how the narrative unfolds. I got to say, like I generally don't go in movies I haven't seen with an expectation, but when they're kind of like quote unquote older like this, where they've been out for a while, and over the years you hear certain things or come to get a certain expectation of how the plot might unfold. I got to say, like I definitely didn't expect it to be told the way it was, and I'll get to that in a minute. I just want to, maybe for people who aren't familiar or who haven't seen it in a while, just give it a little touch of what the story is about here, just for spoiler's sake. But so yeah, as the title suggests, The Virgin Suicides follows a group of male friends who become obsessed with 5 mysterious sisters who are sheltered by their strict religious parents in suburban Detroit in the mid-1970s. So not a whole lot in the way of plot, and it's really not a plot-driven movie. We are following, like it says, like a group of neighborhood boys. And I love how, even though like the movie is, and the story from the book, it's about these sisters who ultimately like take their own lives, spoiler alert. And it kind of recount their lives, and this tragedy sort of recounted through the memories of these neighborhood boys who have grown up and what they knew about the siblings or how they tried to get to know them back when they were youths and never quite got there because of how sheltered they were from their parents. So I really kind of think I expected a more straightforward, here's like the lives of these girls and this something happens and it leads to this sort of like suicide pact between them. But I gotta say, I admired how it's really not, the story's not from their perspective. We don't ever really see their point of view, their internal thoughts, and ultimately, like, it kind of creates this mystery that's present from the very beginning to the very end. And I really admired that part. I just expected something straightforward, and I think the movie's better off for being ambiguous. I don't know if you share that or if you expected differently.
I agree with you, and I think that when I read about what the author, because the author liked the movie but had like a few things that he thought should have been different, and I think that she did a good job of still conveying this, even though he thought that they should convey it in a different way. And he said that he envisioned the girls as more of an entity than actual people, and he believed that this could have been accomplished by casting different actors to play the same character, with each actress changing depending on who they were speaking to. But the idea here is that I never really felt that these girls, and like I guess like something about them never felt quite real. There was almost like an idea, and some of the idea seemed to be projected by the boys' thoughts of like who they were,
right.
and like and like kind of creating that in their own head. And so sometimes I felt like when we were watching the movie, we were seeing like their interpretation of who the girls were.
Yes.
And then we had like when they were in the home, we were seeing like the interpretation of who the parents wanted them to be, and like all this. Like, so I never really, and I was fine with this, but I never really thought we got to get to know them individually as characters. But I think that was kind of the point.
It's not a flaw kind of in the movie at all. It's intentional, I think. And
they were supposed to be mysterious, I guess. Like that was the whole point. Yeah.
Right.
And I really like that part about it a lot. And I love that there wasn't and Kirsten Dunst, I guess when she got cast, she was really nervous because she thought a lot of the pressure was going to be on her. But then she was like, but a lot of she's in a lot of scenes, but I noticed that a lot of the girls, and her especially, there's not a lot of dialogue for them either. Like they're just kind of like there. And then like they really are supposed to, like, I hate to say objects because that feels like a wrong word to say, but like they're like the fact that they are kind of void of like actual like lengthy dialogue segments and stuff like that gives them more the impression of like they're not quite based in like reality. There's something that is being like they are protected out based on who is thinking about them or associating with them, and that's how their characters are formed. And I thought that was interesting. And like any other movie not written that well, like it probably I would have been like, well, that's kind of flawed. I want to know more about them.
Right.
But this appeared to be the point, though. The point was to keep them at like a little bit of an arm's length, which is why they probably were so intriguing to the boys, because they like, oh, there's just something so like out of reach and out of touch about them that made them interesting. So I thought that was a really cool thing. Like, and in lesser hands, it could have been handled like completely wrong, and like you wouldn't buy it. But I completely bought it here, the way that Sofia Coppola presented it.
I 100% I agree. I think what was ultimately like a really strong part of the story, like I think I obviously haven't read the book, so I'm sure it comes from that. And the fact that it was written by a man, I think lends some credit to how accurately this sort of infatuation with these mysterious neighborhood girls is portrayed by a group of like young boys who are experiencing puberty for the first time and are lusting after like the neighborhood girls. I think that was such a universal experience, I think, for men. And the fact that the movie is directed by a woman, it strengthens how the girls are perceived by the men and how mysterious they are. Because I mean, Sofia Coppola, and this movie very much is, I think, like rooted in feminism and how they're portrayed and respected, and not ultimately their fates, I don't think, are glorified, or what's the word people use sometimes, glamorized. Like paints them as like this haunting, tragic family that I think Sofia Coppola is really to credit by her direction, how it's not just the boys infatuated with these girls, but even though we don't see them as central like characters and we don't hear their thoughts and we rarely see them by themselves, Sofia Coppola really gives them a lot of character. And I think that her like female perspective really makes this book as a movie much better.
Yeah, I think it's good that you said that we rarely see them by themselves. I think that kind of adds to the point of like they are really a projection of like the people around them. Like they're like that, like the fact that we don't really get a lot of individual moments of like, you know, bonding and character development between them, like, you
Right.
know, and that adds to like the whole idea of like uh you know, the mystery, I guess, of who they are. And like
Mhm.
and I love that it's set like where it's set, because I think like
Mm.
the stories like this that are set in the 70s and stuff like that, like that kind of natural, like, you know, having like, you know, neighborhood girls and neighborhood boys, like that idea of like, you know, kind of being attracted to like the neighborhood girls and town like that, who are, you don't
Mhm.
really know a lot about them, but what you do know is that, oh, you think they're pretty and this and that, and like and I thought that kind of added, the time period adds to that a bit. And you know, the whole I guess religion, I mean, what their parents are trying to do to kind of protect them from
Right.
these kind of evil outside forces is also really, I mean, I guess that still exists today, but certainly
For
was a
sure.
bigger product of its time
Yeah.
back then. And and then I also like, you know, the way the guys are depicted. It was interesting because I didn't really, the guys are really depicted as like dogs per se. They're not like, they're like, I thought that was like interesting too. They're not really like
Yes.
vile. I mean, I think they're just kind of acting on basic adolescent instinct, which is like, you know,
Right.
they're in that age range where that is what you would be thinking about. And so like
100%. It's not
I'm glad,
malicious.
right, I'm glad they also didn't demonize them, which I guess you could have easily done.
For
As
sure.
kind of like, you know, like trying to blatantly take advantage of these girls. Like they seem to be intrigued by them on multiple levels, other than like just sex. Like there seems to be a lot more going on as to why
Right.
they're intrigued by them. And I think that's like a kind of a fine balance, because they could have she could have easily written them to be like kind of trash dudes who only wanted one thing from them. But
Right.
she didn't. And I think that's, I'm not sure how the book kind of portrays that, but like I thought that was interesting, that, and probably it helps, you know, that it was directed and written by a woman, but had like this kind of like male kind of aesthetic there by a guy writing the book. You
Right.
know, she's able, you know, it can be written from like this, he can write really honestly from the male adolescent point of view, and she can
Right.
kind of portray like the female adolescent point of view, and then kind of like
Yes.
rein anything in that needs to be reined
Those
in.
things
So
complement
I
each other
that's
so
very
well.
interesting.
Yeah. It kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
reminded me actually of American Psycho and Mary Herron directing that movie,
yeah.
adapted by the novel by Bret Easton Ellis, and how like we get Patrick Bateman's perspective as a man, and we have Mary Herron to sort of bridge the gap into how females are looked at through his lens. And I thought that was like, I don't
Right.
know why the movies are nothing alike, but in the fact that they're both adapted from novels written by men, directed by women, like it was just a comparison I made. And we just
Yeah.
celebrated a 25th anniversary of that movie as well not long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think we brought it up before, like how it's movies like this are handled differently when women direct them.
Right.
You know, you know, we're gonna get, even though I think Luca Guadagnino is like a bit different in that sense, but like we're, you know, if a man directed American Psycho, in the traditional sense, and adapted the book the way it really is written, which is like it's pretty violent and like, you know,
Hmm.
and then she chose to go more of like the satire, kind of poking fun at
Right.
that kind of thing. And I think she was able to dial some of those things back. Um, I felt that way about Hustlers. I know Martin Scorsese wanted that movie at one point, like a while back, and
Oh
not saying that
boy.
he couldn't have done it. Not saying that he could
No,
have done
but
it,
how
because I think
different those
I
movies
think
would be though. Yeah.
yeah, and because I think he's a respectful filmmaker. I don't think he like I don't think his camera would leer over the women. But
Mm.
there was something to be said. Like all the good reviews for that movie pointed out that like having a female director, the scenes where, you know, they're depicting them like, you know, at the strip club and all that were not uh done in a sense where it was like, oh, it felt vile, or like we were kind of like leering at the women and like
Right.
objectifying them. They were filmed in a way where they were empowered. So I think that
Hmm.
I think, you know, having a female perspective with movies like this, especially when it deals with uh you know, sex and sexuality and all that, I think it is important, because like, yeah, it's just, you know, it's a completely different lens between a man and a woman trying to attack some of these issues. Not to say that men can't attack these things honestly, but
Hmm. No, for sure.
women certainly have a much closer relationship with some of these things than men do. So I think
For
that's
sure.
important
And
to kind of point out.
I agree. this cast in this movie, I didn't expect to go so deep. And there's some like really famous actors whose work I haven't seen a lot, but it was interesting to see. This is, I think, my first look at a couple guys like James Woods. I haven't seen a lot of his work, but he plays the father of the girls, and great performance by him. From what I understand, he's known for a career playing really like zany, zesty characters, and he's very reserved and quiet and passive in this role. I thought it was a really subtle performance by him.
So I've seen him in a few different things. I also have seen him on social media recently. He's a character. He's a character for sure. And he's known for being a character. But a really good actor. I mean, I haven't seen the movie in a while, but he was in a movie called Ghost of Mississippi. He got nominated for an Oscar for that, and he was really good in that. He's in Any Given Sunday, which not like a large part of that, but like I enjoyed that movie as well. This is like a rare, like quiet, subtle performance from him. And I heard that he took it on because he liked the material and all that. And a lot of these people had some kind of relationship with either, well, at least the older, like with Francis Ford Coppola, or they knew Sofia Coppola because of like the family connection, all that. I think Kathleen Turner, that was the reason why she did it. James
they
Woods,
worked together on one of her father's movies, I believe. Right?
Yeah. Same thing with James Woods. The younger cast, though, this started a good working relationship between her and Kirsten Dunst. I mean, this was like the first thing they did together, and like she was in her movie Marie Antoinette. Like she had a cameo in The Bling Ring. Like they are very close now.
Okay, yeah, I think she's in Beguiled as well.
In Beguiled as well, yeah. So I think it kind of was fostered at the time. Like Kirsten Dunst said, like taking on the role made her nervous because she was 16 when she got cast. It was the first kind of like she said sexy thing she's ever done. So she felt very nervous about it. And like again, I think that's why it's important to have a female director on a movie like this. She made probably everyone on that set feel very comfortable, particularly the girls. So and this was a good transition period for Kirsten Dunst. Like this was around like, she had done Interview with the Vampire in like 94. And then she had done like a lot of like kind of, I don't want to say children's movies, but they were like geared more towards her age range. She was in Small Soldiers and Jumanji. So like I
always forget she's in Jumanji. That's right.
So like this was a nice transition for her to like get more like serious adult roles. Even though I think this year 2000 she was in Bring It On. I feel like Bring It On was like the last thing that she did that was like kind of popsy cutesy, like for her age range, and which she still enjoys. She like speaks highly of that movie, but you can tell that like she was an actress that wanted to do more than what was probably being offered to her as a teenage actress at the time. She probably wanted to do a lot more deeper material. And then this was filmed in 98, so I'm assuming Josh Hartnett who plays Trip Fontaine, which is like the best name ever.
No, it is exactly a comic book sort of like, or like stereotypical like jock name. I love it though. He's a wicked performer. I was so glad to see him in this because we've seen a lot of his stuff lately, and I love when he pops up in movies where I don't expect him to.
So this was filmed in 98. So I'm assuming that he did, because he was in H2O in 98. He was in The Faculty at the end of 98. I'm assuming that these are all done maybe close to each other. So he had like a good run of like, breakout movies at this time. Jonathan Tucker, I recognize too.
Yes.
He was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, but he's done other stuff. Like he was in The Ruins, which I enjoyed, and like a few TV shows that are really good.
Criminal Minds is where I've known him for like ever, because I watched Criminal Minds like religiously growing up. It was like one of those shows.
You always on.
Oh, right on. Actually, so my dad liked it. And I picked it up from him. And honestly, not honestly, but another name stood out to me in this. The actress that plays Mary Lisbon, one of the other sisters, AJ Cook, is a huge role in Criminal Minds. So to see her in this, I haven't seen her act in anything aside from that show. So that was
she's in Final Destination too. Like I know, and she looks
nice.
She's like the lead, but she looks so different. I mean, I guess not different.
I didn't recognize her while watching the movie until I saw her name.
Yeah, she's a brunette in Final Destination too. I was like, I was like, I kept looking at her face. I'm like, that face looks so familiar. I was like, why does that face look familiar? And then I like pulled her up. I was like, oh, she's in Final Destination too. But then I never really watched Criminal Minds, even though I'm told by everyone I should, because it's not like, apparently it's not like a typical procedural like show where they say it gets pretty dark in places, and I was like, all right,
for sure.
I'll check that out.
It is
but
amazing.
The
earlier seasons are amazing.
I did recognize her name from that. But yeah, it seemed like a lot of people like got their start here. Or at least like, yeah. I mean, I was surprised by how deep it went. We were getting like even smaller parts from Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
which is
Hayden
like
Christensen is it? Yeah, Danny DeVito. I saw his name early in the credits. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I haven't really seen a lot into him, and he has one scene. I was like, oh, that's it. That's all the Danny DeVito we get. He looked very different than I expected, as well at the age that he was in this. But Hayden Christensen again, didn't even realize it was him until the credits. I was like, oh, that was neat to see. And then I had to go back and like check, and oh yeah, he plays. I think Jake. He plays one of the boys that takes the girls to not the prom. What do you call it? The homecoming.
Oh yeah.
It's not really a thing in Canada, or at least not where I'm from.
Oh, you guys don't do homecoming? Oh, I didn't know that. See, that's so interesting that like the stuff that we have that you guys don't.
Yeah.
Like we have homecoming, we have winter formal.
Yeah, we kind of had versions of that. We called them.
We have this Sadie Hawkins dance, which is like when the girls ask the guys, which just seems so like
interesting.
Which is like finally.
Right.
And then of course prom. But I'm sure you guys had
prom, of course. That's the big one.
But yeah, I was surprised. Like Hayden Christensen was a name I did not know was in it at all, and it was weird because I just did something for Revenge of the Sith where I had to talk about his career, and I somehow missed this. But it's like a small part,
really?
So like,
I mean, yeah,
because like I knew about Life as a House, which is like a really good movie that he's actually really good at. What I was trying to point out when I wrote that thing about Revenge of the Sith was like he can act. It was just like Star Wars was just
a bad showcase of his talent.
Yeah, but like I missed this as one of his like earlier things that he did, because I guess he was like a more of a thing in Canada before he did anything here. He was on like a Canadian like TV show and stuff like that. So, but yeah, interesting. I didn't know Giovanni. I do not. I can look it up though.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious if I know it.
Yeah, because he was born in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, I did not know that about him.
He had a minor role in John Carver's In the Mouth of Madness too. Well,
his kid on the bike. Yeah.
Are You Afraid of the Dark was like filmed mostly in Canada, so he did that there.
Oh, I didn't know he was in
that. The Goosebumps TV show was another one that also was done in Canada.
I was a humongous Goosebumps fan as a kid.
Yeah, something called Forever Night about an 800-year-old vampire, also a Canadian show. So he was in like a few Canadian, Sorry, I just started a discussion about Kirsten Dunst. I'm just surprised that he was. Well, I'm just surprised to see his name. I was like, oh, and you're right. I had to do the same thing where I was like, who was he? And I was like, oh, that is him.
He's just so young in this movie. He's like,
because honestly, once you see his face, you're like, oh, it is him. But like, if you're not looking for him, like you're not like, oh, that's
exactly
him. But I was mostly about the talent that she got. Like the fact that she was able to acquire like such really good natural young talent is really pretty amazing. I thought that they were all really good. Now it always is weird to watch movies where some of the people now as older as like men or women, and like to think about them now, like then like, oh, like what were they like when they were like teenagers in movies. So like it was an interesting separation for me to like look at Jonathan Tucker and even look at Kirsten Dunst, who's like changed so much and has like matured a lot. I mean, I thought she was mature even then as an actress, but she's certainly matured a lot more since then. But like to think back at like where they were at in their careers then, and like just seeing that natural talent on screen and like kind of be like, oh, like they were going places eventually, and then for someone like Sofia Coppola to notice that, I mean, in the case of Kirsten Dunst, she had already been noticed, but I think that like we said earlier, like like the stage of your career where you really want to attack more mature material, like having a director kind of foster that, I think is really interesting and good for her that she had someone that she could trust to do that with. I mean, they made her probably because she was the biggest like young name of the cast. Like she is the face on like all the cover art and the posters, and like she was used to sell the movie. So
100%.
Yeah, I thought that was like very interesting, like to have all those people at that stage in their careers and like seen right before they're about to like take off.
On the note of casting, I almost forgot to mention. Apparently, Sofia Coppola, after seeing, I can't remember what performance of hers she saw that had her interested in casting her, but Sofia Coppola did approach Scarlett Johansson for a role in this movie, which she ultimately, I think she declined on the grounds that the script was too like intense for her. But then, of course,
Oh,
she did end up casting her, and they worked together on her
and
follow-up movie, Lost in Translation. So that's
translation.
pretty. That would have been, I think, Scarlett Johansson would have fit in very nicely in this movie as well.
Yeah, I can see her. She could tell she would look the
Yeah,
part for sure.
definitely.
In terms of like, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, you know, did you really didn't know what kind of movie you were jumping into when you started to watch it? Like, I mean, like, did you watch trailers or anything for it, or heard anything about it like before you watched it?
I actually, so it's weird. It's like one of those movies that I was aware of for years, like decade and a half. I've scrolled it on IMDb several times. Like I'm familiar with Sofia Coppola's filmography. I'm aware. I don't know that I would have known it was her debut, but I knew it was like early in her career. But I had avoided all sorts of spoilers, any connotations of the narrative. I did. The only thing that maybe I had seen before was footage of that, and it's my favorite scene in the film. Is the sort of when Giovanni Ribisi's narrator is another character. I know you mentioned him, and I cut you off, I think,
Yeah.
earlier. Him
No.
narrating the
Yeah.
movie was a
Yeah.
great feature too.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
way that he's like so somber and how he's kind of like recounting what happened, I thought was a good directing choice.
Yeah.
But his sort of like recounting of like the actual deaths themselves. It's the scene when the boys, Lux kind of like leads them into her house at night, and then
Oh, when it's kind of like the whole thing that towards the end of the movie.
right, it's very close
Yeah.
to the end, closer than I even really realized.
Yeah.
There's not much movie after the scene, but when the boys kind of discover, I'm not sure which of the sisters hung, maybe Bonnie. It
Yeah.
mentions, but that whole sequence when like we see Bonnie hang, it's a really great. It's like almost played for like really dark humor, except I've still not really decided if it's like supposed to be darkly humorous,
Yeah.
or if it's supposed to be like just is that when the tragedy really comes center stage. But when we see that just the feet of one of the sisters like hanging, and
Yeah.
one of the boys is like oblivious and his back is to it, and then the other guys we just like see them staring in horror, and he turns
Yeah.
around and discovers it for himself, and then they flee out of the house in terror, and then Giovanni Ribisi
Yes, he has like one that
narrates.
he has that one joke about like it's something along the lines about the one to be felt up. All right, right.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
goes
it's
with
weird.
these
It's like
girls. If I could just feel them up one time, and then yeah,
yeah,
and
that's what
he's
makes it
like,
darkly funny because like there's this
yes,
like funny bit of dialogue and like you as a viewer have already seen like her feet and all that, and
yeah,
then like you're like, and then it almost not even I know it took me a I knew I was what I was seeing, but almost like because of like listening to him and then seeing that, and then like seeing the other guys' reactions to it,
yes.
like it took me a bit to put it together in my head. I was like, oh, this is where
This is
this
the
is
scene.
going.
Yeah,
This is the thing.
yeah.
Yeah, right. And his narration over that was like hauntingly beautiful though. It was like kind of like
Mm,
the way they described it and all that. And then
mhm.
also like I think what made it like I love that you didn't have to see all that. Like when he described one of the like sisters like putting her head in the oven, and
Yeah,
I
we
was just
don't.
like,
Yeah,
I was like, I need to see that. I mean, just hearing that was just like, oh, like my imagination took that where it needed to go, and I was like, yeah, don't need to.
exactly. Sometimes
And
less
then
is
just
more. I know we repeat that motif all the time in the show, but it really is a hallmark of
yeah,
like good direction. A lot of times is restraint, and seeing the girls come out on stretchers like under
yeah,
blankets is like enough as of a visual to like paint
yeah,
this tragedy without like. That's what I meant earlier when I say this doesn't glamorize their suicide. Like that was
yeah.
an
There's no
important detail.
graphic
No.
like depictions of it. I mean, it's almost so artsy that it's like
Mm,
oddly beautiful. Like I think it's the scene. It's like it's Lux that's in the car with a cigarette, and it's just like and that shot is just like it's a beautiful shot, even though it's like depicting something very dark.
right.
Um, it's just the way that the color palette and everything. And I don't know, like she did a good job of making something very serious feel very
Hmm.
beautiful. Like we talk about that with horror movies too sometimes, where like that kind of like sometimes that horror and stuff like can be viewed as art. It's like the way that they're depicting it is art.
Yes.
um for it to take a serious subject matter like that and like find a way to frame it where it's not gratuitous and it's not you know not kind of glamorizing the act of it is a very hard thing to do, I think.
Hmm.
uh I think a good example, even though I did enjoy the first season of the show, I think 13 Reasons Why had that issue a lot. with a lot of people who watched it who felt that it glamorized that suicide.
I love that you bring that up because I've been like, we've never discussed that. I don't think that show between the two of us. And I was always very conflicted about Netflix's decision to remove that suicide scene.
I don't think they should have. I've always been on the
I agree.
I've always said on the
it kind of comes across as cowardly.
It comes across cowardly, but then I was told, and I guess this is true, like everyone doesn't view things the way that we do. The way that if I was that age when that came out, if I was a teenager, if I were to view something like that, I would have viewed it as like a cautionary tale, not something to be glamorized, like not something to be like, oh, I feel like I want to do that. Now, I guess like there are other people who would watch it who are maybe going through stuff like that would look at that and it would glamorize the idea of it.
Right.
So I get that, but I think at the end of the day, like creative decisions are creative decisions, and creatives, and everyone doesn't agree with this, I don't think creatives are responsible for how people depict their work because it's still their work, it's their art,
Exactly.
And honestly, if something like if an entity like Netflix is going to put something like that out, they should go all out. And then I saw it before they did that. It was pretty graphic. It's very graphic.
It was. I thought it was. I'm not easily disturbed. There's only a handful of scenes I think that I can recount that genuinely disturb me, and Hannah's suicide in that show was one of them. And that's why I thought my impression while watching it. I might have been like 19 or 20 when it came out, so I was like roughly the same age group, a little bit older, and obviously wasn't dealing with the things that character does in that show. But I remember that as the most effective form of non-glamorization that the show could have had. I thought that is such a horrific thing to do, and just by actually seeing it so graphically done, that I couldn't imagine doing something like that. Obviously, maybe somebody who's having thoughts like that's going through it might have a different interpretation, but it's always stuck with me. And then on rewatch of that show, when they had cut it out, I thought this does not have the same punch nearly by removing that scene. But in as far as like the Virgin Suicides is concerned, we don't need a scene like that to really drive the message home. I think it's portrayed very like respectfully, but also like with full effect.
Yeah. And from what I remember around this time, I don't think this movie got a lot of any flack for its depiction of this kind of stuff. So I think that says a lot about, I guess, its restraint, I guess, in like in the way it depicts it. I don't remember it being this movie, and honestly, 1999 was a crucial time for youth stuff like this to come out, especially dealing with like adolescents who were like going through stuff like this, or like kind of diving into like darker territory, because like the late 90s, there's like there's Columbine and a bunch of other shit around that time that was like going on like media wise. So like stories like this being told were kind of like not necessarily rare, but like people were a bit more careful about doing them, which is why like there were certain things like, so like this premieres in 99, the Cannes Film Festival comes out in 2000. We were still feeling the lingering effects of like a lot of that real life stuff.
Right.
And from what I remember, this movie didn't get attacked for that. And I think it could be because it's told in such an artful and respectful manner though. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, like, and I think in the care of any other director, this could have not gone that way. But I think that she kind of had the eye of like, just handling it respectfully, and like artfully as well. Like it's not an easy thing to do, especially since there is no real like discerning plot to the film. So like, this is like, it's just like a sequence of events. That's how I viewed it. And I saw a lot. I think looking at it now, I wonder if people would like look at this movie and be like, "What was the point of this?" Like, what I mean? Like
that infamous question. Yeah.
I don't think people were really asking that in 2000 so much. I think they were just kind of like, I think more so they were caught up in the fact that like, one, this is like a directorial debut from someone who comes from like directorial excellence, right? So there was a lot of pressure on that. Visually, it's great. Like, it's a good first film debut. So I think people were like looking a lot at that,
and it was praised as much for sure as being that. Yeah,
and probably less about the narrative. I mean, I don't really I kind of do wonder if it came out now, would there be a question of like, okay, what was the point of all of that? And they would want definitive answers as to why the events of the movie took place. Like we kind of talked about like what we think the reasons are, the themes, and like I think in any circumstance, if you kind of repress a certain person's needs and desires, like that becomes too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then this could kind of be the outcome if, especially for younger people, if they feel like almost like they're being punished for expressing these kind of things, and like considering the family that they grew up in, like kind of ultra religious, like mother and father, like
Right.
there'll be a lot of guilt associated with like all the things that they wanted to do and explore. So like I can, like, to me it's over for interpretation. That's how I interpret it. But I think some people today would want a clear cut reason as to like why is this story being told, like
Right.
what's the lesson here? That kind of thing.
This is one of those movies where I don't know that there like is one for everybody, and I sometimes like just to watch something in like, or maybe not like watch, or not just necessarily watch, but observe if it's a painting or some other work of art. Sometimes just like tragedy for tragedy's sake, or replace that with anything, is enough
Yeah.
just to experience. And there doesn't have to be a what lesson is there to be learned, or what is the point of the story. Sometimes it's just like good art is art for art's sake, right? MGM's slogan is that's enough. And I agree, like that would probably be asked by a lot of like mainstream audiences if this is released today. And this is why I picture this movie, if it was remade, as like earlier A24 vibes. Like this is just the kind of story that they eat up. They have a niche audience that's gonna go and appreciate this movie for what it is, not needing like a big explanation. And I actually, on that note, I think what really brings us all together, and I think maybe like the viewer in me was like expecting this like clear-cut explanation of why the girls do what they do. And the fact that we don't get that as audience members, because this movie's being told from the perspective of these boys that never really knew the girls in the first place, only had like glimpses of them, and they don't get any answers as to why they killed themselves. And so thus, as the audience, we don't get anything that they don't have. And I thought that was honestly like, it's frustrating, but it's a good story.
It's being told from their perspective, and they even even mention that in the narration at the end, that they never really got a clear cut answer for.
And I like that
why these things happen. And like and since the story is being told from like we are never once fooled into thinking the story is being told from Lux's perspective, or like anyone else's, like other than the boys who are like the guys who are narrating it, is being told from their kind of like skewed perception of who these girls were.
Right.
And like you said, like they really didn't know them. So like, again, they're only telling people what they were able to see, what they were able to kind of hear. And the rest of it is kind of like almost like a fantasy they create in their head. Like, okay, this is what I think they were. And I think the movie does a good job of conveying that. Cause like I said, like I love that you pointed out that the girls don't really have a lot of moments together or like alone, or like where they're, and that's because like the boys wouldn't really know about any moments about them being alone, and like what they would discuss, like like unless they were clearly in the narration kind of pointing out, this is what I think they would be discussing, like. So I guess that's what kind of makes them so like wonderfully portrayed as like almost outerworldly. They don't really feel like real people, and like but again, even though they don't feel like real people, there's something grounded about them a little bit. Like there's something like in their characters that don't feel so out of touch that you don't still respect them or like appreciate them as like people. Like they're still like there's still traces of like who they are as human beings that like make you care a little bit about like who they are, who they might have been. So that's a hard line to walk, I think, to make work.
One thing I think just to build on what you just said, Sofia Coppola, while I was like kind of researching the inspiration of the novel from Jeffrey, I can't remember how I pronounced his name earlier.
I was gonna butcher it.
Eugenides. So when he apparently he had the concept for the story when he was much younger, but like purposely wrote it when he was in his 30s, just so he could like kind of write it from like the distance of adolescence.
Yeah.
And it was like loosely inspired the suicide part, and like the characters of the Lisbon sisters are fictional, but basically that where this draws from inspiration is he was one of these neighborhood boys once upon a time that lusted after these neighborhood girls.
Yeah.
And he said that while writing this, he wanted to create almost sort of like he wanted the girls to almost be mythical, and that he wanted to create like an urban legends type story about like the dangers of like overprotection of like your kids, and um point out how, I guess, like the danger, or not dangers, but you wanted to pinpoint the objectification, I guess, of the girls, and like the
Right.
mystification of them. And I think that Sofia Coppola did a great job, like you mentioned, at portraying that accurately from the novel by not giving them
Yeah.
these intimate moments that the boys never would have really have
Had with him.
known. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
like there's very little gaps that are filled in by the direction that we wouldn't
Right.
that they wouldn't have known themselves.
And apparently she was very faithful to the novel in general. As far, I mean, I know he kind of took not issue, because he did like the movie, but like and how the girls were portrayed on screen, but like a lot of the dialogue and narration, like I guess, was taken like verbatim from the book. So like
Okay.
she was very faithful to it. It makes me wonder, because Nick Gomez was the one that wrote the other take on this, and maybe it makes me wonder what his script that they didn't like. I wonder what he kind of did, which probably maybe less faithful to it. Also, I was like thinking about this. The book itself, not saying that it should have been, but I just wonder if there was any I never know anyone that like got a hold of this book like in high school or anything like that. Like, I wonder if it would have been like a good thing for like young people to read, or if they would have like, or if it would have been like a lot, or if it would have taken like issue with like the subject matter, and like our kids should not be reading this, because like, you know what, we read stuff like Catcher in the Rye in high school,
Love
and that has a lot of stuff in it that is like maybe not as blatant as like this would have been, but you know, when you think about how angsty and certain people are in high school, just looking for a Holden Caulfield to identify with, like, I'm justified in these feelings. Like, we were reading stuff like that maybe might have like put thoughts in your head, like, what I'm feeling is justified. Yeah. So like, I don't know, this would have been very interesting reading as a youth, I think.
I look at it as like this at least the movie as like the anti coming of age film, and I completely agree. This could have important like lessons and characters for like adolescents to read and identify with growing up. I feel like there's an aversion by school boards and everything about probably the ending.
I think they would see the title of the book, and then like they're like, nope. Or like, are even screening the movie in class, like, oh, we're gonna watch, like, nope. Like, they wouldn't even get past like what the thing is called. There's like, the virgin suicides, like that's out. That's not
right.
It's funny because this movie.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead before you.
I was just saying, I think the inclusion of the word virgin in the title is like interesting because, like, yes, especially the character of like Lux, like her sexuality is like explored a lot, like almost like exclusively. But I'm just curious, like, there's not really any other mention or allusion to like them like being. I don't know necessarily if there's like any interpretation that you have or that you've read about why the title is what it is. Like, it was one thing that because you're right, you mentioned earlier, it is an intriguing title, but I'm kind of curious as to like, I guess I'm just wondering, like, specifically the word virgin, like why that's included in it. And
I know, I don't know for sure. I mean, I wonder if it's if I'm thinking from the perspective of like the parents and what they were trying to keep them from, and like, you know, keeping them pure, and you know, maintaining your virginity is what would keep you pure in like certain people's eyes. So I wonder if that is like a part of it. There was like a lot of like emphasis on kind of preventing the girls from experiencing those kind of things, and like keeping them like safe from that. But you're right, Lux's sexuality is the one that is explored the most, and like clearly she was the one the movie kind of focuses in more as being like the object of like desire, like especially for certain people. But yeah, that's interesting. That's the only thing I can really think of is that there's this like this need by the parents to keep their daughters chaste and like have them not experience any of these things, um and not that their
Yeah, I
virginity
think
is
you're
what
right.
led to what led to their suicide, but it was just like it's like again like that's what I got like when you try to suppress certain things, like it can blow up in a big way,
Mhm.
and I think that is what the movie was trying to say, in some
No,
aspects of its story.
I think you're onto something for sure. I thought maybe that it would have a bigger, I think it's more rooted in the subtext of the movie. I think you hit the
Yeah.
nail on the head. What did I interrupt you from saying though? I didn't mean to speak at the same
No,
time.
no. I thought it was interesting that like Entertainment Weekly, it's named as it was ranked 39 on their list of 50 best high school movies, and I don't think of this as a high school movie, I guess.
I
And like,
never had that thought either.
and
That's
I
interesting.
know the characters are in high school, and I know that they are of that age, like, but it seems so like far removed from that. Like, I'm like this list has like 10 things I hate about you on it, and like stuff like that. So like, yeah, when I think of high school movies, I think of that. You know,
Hmm.
but I guess it would be. Like technically it is. I think I agree with you too that it's a kind of anti coming of age story. Like it's not like when you're young, if you're watching this, isn't like this is not like watching the person being a wallflower or something like that. That right. And I know that movie isn't totally feel good. Like there's like a certain part of that movie that's very serious towards the end where you learn like
Hmm.
what happened to that main character, but like there's like a even though it's beautiful, there is a darkness rooted in this story that doesn't feel very
Hmm.
like fun high school movie. But I guess
We
like
think
every high
about
school movie
high
doesn't.
school movies. Yeah,
Yeah. You think Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I don't think of like the Virgin Suicides, but
exactly. Heather's too doesn't it's essentially say it's a high school movie, but I almost don't really categorize it that way.
yeah. What did you think of the music? Because I know I told you earlier that like the score itself, like my friends,
Mm.
actually had a couple friends that loved Air, and I got to know that band through them playing like a lot of this soundtrack, even though I never, I guess at the time I was like, I hadn't seen the movie. But their music pops up in so many commercials, TV shows.
So
It's I thought the use of the music, at least for this, was really good, and I'm glad it didn't have like a traditional like score.
mm,
I thought it works for like I thought it added to the kind of like ethereal like kind of outer worldly aspect of the movie that made it feel less like it almost made it feel like surrealistic a little bit. Like it didn't feel like made it feel like less like rooted in reality. And I think that kind of helps. The music
so
helps
I'm
it better.
thinking that I must like know Air without knowing that I know them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did they? There. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is like a soundtrack as long as is there not a score or is there not a sound? Because I remember like some 70s hits and stuff playing that I really liked.
So yeah,
Or is it
there are
Air
actually
like
like so they are
playing
actually like
them?
songs like there are needle drops from
Okay.
like bands and stuff, but Air provided like I guess the score for the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like just because, and I figured this would happen, scores, as much as I love them and like I have like my favorites like downloaded, oftentimes when I watch something for the first time, it's the last thing I remember. I guess I'm so focused on
Oh,
like
that's
the
crazy.
narrative.
Because
So
sometimes you'll talk about how you like scores a lot. So I was
I love scores.
uh
I have a playlist on my phone of scores, but ultimately, a lot of the times, especially where I'm a week off this watch, like I don't really remember hanging on to any of it. I remember like the needle drops and trying to identify like which band was playing. I
yeah,
love the soundtrack of this movie, but the score I think is something I need to pay attention to more on rewatch. But I've heard of
yeah,
Air, and I think I'm going to look into them and see what I know about them. They're like they're European, right? European
yeah,
duo.
yeah. Their music. I mean, it's along the like once you like if you were to go back and like look at certain scenes where the music's featured and you listen to their stuff outside of this, it's all same like wavelength. Like they have a certain distinct sound. Um, really good for certain movies and TV shows. I used to use their songs a lot on Gossip Girl, like
Oh, okay.
on that. Yeah, and like they have a song in Go, which I kind of forgot about.
Oh,
Like,
neat.
so yeah, they're really good. I mean, one of the things when I popped it on because their score kind of kicks in pretty early in the movie. One, I was like, oh yeah, this is where that music's from because I had like
Oh, neat.
people played it a lot, and then also like the imagery along with the music goes so well together. I mean, like it was like the right choice to use someone like them rather than like a typical like score that'd be featured in like a film like in general. Like I love when people think outside the like that's why I love like I think you're kind of seeing that a lot more recently with like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, where like the scores aren't like traditional scores.
Yes.
And I think I that's what I kind of like. I mean, of course, I love Hans Zimmer and I love John Williams and Danny Elfman. Like all that is great. But like, it is nice to like mix that up and like have a little bit of a different sound for movies so that they aren't feeling like they are made by like the same orchestra and all that. I thought it was like a really good choice that she did that. And I guess she said that she wanted a consistent soundtrack that suited the theme of the film, which led to Air being brought on board to do the music. She wanted to convey the theme of adolescence in the suburbs in the soundtrack. She found that Air shared many of her suburban memories and experiences, even though they grew up in a different country. So that's why she ended up picking them. So also her choice. I mean, I just love how, well, I can't be surprised that she was so hands-on. I guess you would let Sofia Coppola be completely hands-on and you probably wouldn't interfere much because she is a Coppola. So I guess I can't be surprised that like she got to like have her hands in like so many different pots on this movie because who's gonna fight the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola? But it's still cool that she got to do that. Like she got like this movie feels like it's hers through and through. And to add to what you said about Lost in Translation, I have seen that, but it's been so long since I watched it, and I remember it having like the same kind of like feel of this as far as like the look a little bit, but there's so much of it I don't remember, and I kind of feel bad that I don't because like it is considered a lot even better than this by a lot of people, a lot of critics. It got some like Academy Award love too. So like so I mean she kind of was on a roll with this one and Lost in Translation, and then I know in her films since then there's been like a mix of like people that like some people are like, oh, doesn't quite live up to what she did before. Like, but if anything, she's always been an interesting filmmaker to me because I think she takes chances, and I also think that she doesn't want to just do the same thing over and over again, and that that should be applauded. Her not being a one-trick pony. Like she really wants to attack like different stories. I respect her. I mean, I respect her a lot as a filmmaker.
Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't have anything coming down the pipeline as a director anyway. I'm on her IMDb. Nothing as an actress. I want her as a nothing on the go right now. So hopefully she gets back in the chair soon and
she's simmering. Hopefully it's something simmering in that brain of hers.
Hopefully, because she just did Priscilla in 2023 and directed that.
Damn. I did watch that. I forgot I watched that.
I can't believe it's a couple of years ago already, though. Or I guess more like a year and a half. But that already has come and gone, and nothing since that. But she directed that movie to a couple Oscar nominations, I think. At least.
Yeah, I know I got some. I think it was like a Golden Globe nomination too for that. A lot of people want to work with her when she does choose to do something, and I think that says a lot. Like it's one of those directors that people respect. She's not just Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. So like and I wonder if there's a lot of pressure to separate yourself from me. I mean, he directed some of that would be hard if I was someone's son who directed one of the best movies of all time. According to a lot of people, that's and several other great films. Like that has to be a lot of pressure.
100% it does.
And I wonder if she's ever felt. I mean, I never read this, but I wonder if she's ever felt the pressure, even though with the name, like as a woman in the industry, being able to direct projects. If it's been hard for her to like get stuff off the ground. Like I've never actually looked into that. I wonder if it is hard, even with the name and pedigree behind her. If it's hard for her to, because a lot of female directors talk about that a lot. Even after they've had hits or a lot of critical acclaim, like it's still hard for them. And I wonder if it's like that for her.
Yeah, I'd like to think not, but I think that might be naive. But in any case, she is fantastic, deserving of all the praise. Very strong debut. I'd like to see some more of her work. Lost in Translation's been on my radar for a long time. It might be something that I follow this watch up with. Marie Antoinette, though, one I'm not familiar with, and
I think you got mixed reviews from what I remember.
Okay, yeah. and she solo wrote and directed that as well.
And you forgot about the bling ring, so there's that.
Yeah, that's right. Because you're right, it doesn't feel very much like this one at all. But
No,
Priscilla
it's
and The
very.
Beguiled are high on my list.
I think she even admitted that the bling ring wasn't like a story that it looked like she would want to do, but like, you know, it was just a part of youth culture that she thought was interesting. The whole idea of just being obsessed with celebrities so much that you take from the people that you admire. So yeah, I mean, I think she thinks about her stories a lot more deeper than I think that's something that should be appreciated too. Like you could tell even with this movie that they're like, even though there isn't like a main like plot line or like narrative, like she still has strong convictions about like what was being presented on screen and making sure it was presented with respect. And I think that's very difficult to deal with subject matter like this. And I think I was just more impressed, even though I've seen some of her other stuff, like just the visual palette was just so I got completely lost in it. Like there's a shot of like, I think it's like Josh Hartnett, I think Kirsten Dunst like on like the football field or something, and it's like just an above shot of them, and like there's a lot of shots like that look like they just be great fucking photographs that you can just like put up on your wall. Like they like just kind of like stills that she kind of creates in the movie, like just really beautiful images. Like, I mean, even if you're like well, the story, like I'm so lost in like the beauty of what she was making that I didn't seem to care that like is there a plot? I get there early.
I know sometimes cinematography speaks for itself, right? It can make up. I don't want to say
Edward
like
Lackman did it, like, which is great. I mean, they worked hand in hand together, which is awesome. But yeah, that's some great work. I mean, I mean, I'm all about when movies look like when there's like a strong. I love directors that have like a strong visual like aesthetic to their work, where you like, oh, you can tell it's them. Tim Burton's like that too. When you watch Tim Burton movie, it's a Tim Burton
Anderson,
movie. Yeah. So like, I love when people have like a signature like thing associated with their work. And what I did know about this movie from people who did like it and did love it, that was the one thing that they commented on the most, is that they love the way the movie looks. Like it's it's a $6 million movie, I think, $9 million movie. And like it's I think she used every cent of that money to create something really beautiful. I mean, I was really impressed by it, and I kind of felt silly that I hadn't seen it. I really thought I had seen it before.
Oh man, there's a million movies out there. You can't see them all, right?
I know. I was like, oh, I guess I've only seen scenes, man. Like, yeah. So it was.
On that note,
pick for you
of the budget, I gotta say, like, I am a little surprised. Like, I know it's not a massive like blockbuster movie by any means, but with like I felt like I expected stronger numbers from how this movie did. Like even worldwide, it only grossed like almost 10.5 million on the $9 million roughly like budget. And as the daughter of like you mentioned, like Francis Ford Coppola, one of the most celebrated filmmakers ever, has made at least 3 of like some of the strongest, like most classic movies ever. I feel like I would expect more people to rush out to see this, but I know it is a smaller, like probably wouldn't surprise me if this had like maybe like a more limited release. I don't really know.
Yeah, it was released. Let me see as far as its actual release. I think it had a limit. It expanded to a wide release in May 2000, but I don't think it really went fully massively wide. But they have said that it's a cult classic now. I think more people discovered it later. After its theatrical, and I could totally see this being a cult classic. Like, one, the title's intriguing. Like, I think that alone will get people to watch it. Like, if it's like a home video kind of thing. And a lot of people speak up on it for it now. And I want to get the Criterion Collection for it. I think that was really, that'd be really cool to have. But I think more people speak on it now because after its theatrical life, probably. I think Lost in Translation might be her highest grossing movie. I mean, if I were to guess, because it definitely is the one. Yeah, it is. It made $118.7 million worldwide. So like that is like, and Lost Translation is a cheaper movie. It cost $4 million to make. So So yeah, I was under the impression that the Virgin Suicides was more financially successful than it was. When I saw how much it made, I was like, oh. But then I read that how much it became a cult classic over the years. I was like, oh, that's why
Oh,
people
I'm sure
really
it's made.
really talk about it.
Made everything back on home release and everything over the years for sure.
I'm sure Paramount Classics is happy with its performance over the years. But yeah, good pick by you. We make a point.
Didn't really know what I was getting us into because I'd never seen it either. It was the first time watch, but I just had always intrigued me, and we don't always get these opportunities. So I was like, you know what, let's throw it on. That was the same case with another pick of mine, Kingdom of Heaven, which we're going to be talking about in the coming days. So a little bit of a different experience. I'm excited to kind of get into that on one of our next episodes, but. Yeah, it was kind of a shot in the dark, but I'm glad that ultimately that I picked it, and it was an enjoyable watch. And I'm looking forward to watching it again. I think I'll appreciate even more about it, and I'll keep my ears tuned to Air's score score
music.
And soundtrack.
Their score is like really great. I'm also intrigued, like because it's supposed to take place in Detroit, Michigan. They filmed it in Toronto,
Canada. That's right. Yeah.
I was like, there are parts of Toronto just like that scream like Detroit in the 70s. But
it's only across the river.
Oh, that's true. I guess
it's not really that far. I know it's a different country and all, but yeah. Toronto has doubled, I think, as like suburban America and a few other productions as well.
Yeah. There's parts of like Canada that fake us well. I guess like I forgot what they used for New York mostly.
Probably maybe Vancouver or Montreal.
Vancouver, Vancouver, because they use Vancouver for Jason Takes Manhattan for parts of it.
Oh, nice.
That's it. So I'm always intrigued by like, I guess there are, but I guess Eagle Eye, like New Yorkers are always, when they watch something that's supposed to take place in New York, they're like, man, it looks like they probably shot that in like fucking Canada. They can get like tell.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed by it, and I'm kind of curious like what you're gonna score it.
Yeah, I was just waiting to get up to that. I feel like I'm just kind of been making my mind up. I think like as much as like I enjoyed it, and as a first effort, I think it's like very strong. But I feel like a 3.5 is probably like how I felt about it. I think that score will go up on subsequent watches. But it also is one of those watches that I think I know I need to be in the right headspace for, like where it's just so glim and like depressing and moody. It's not like every day I'll be returning to this, so I'm not sure.
That's interesting. Like when we have to watch stuff for our anniversaries, you're like, I gotta watch it because we gotta cover it. Like, right? You don't know if you're gonna be in the mood for it. Like that has to affect how you. That's to affect how you watch it, right?
100%. And sometimes it affects like. It can affect my perspective of it, my interpretation, my rating, like especially mostly when it comes down to like movies like with a tone like this one that's just like negative. Like sometimes you got to be like wanting to watch something like that to really get it. Like that's the kind of mood I was in when I watched like Past Lives the first time, or like what's the other one? Jim Carrey. Eternal Sunshine. Yeah, like there's just like moods you got to be in to fully appreciate those movies. And I feel like this is one of them. So like if I'm like in the you need to be like in a low to really appreciate them. So like that's
raining outside.
Exactly. Not like I watched this on like a sunny day and I was like, you know what? Like I feel like if I were to watch, I kind of watched it because I had to, even though it was my pick. But like maybe some like rainy October day, this movie's like a 4 or 4.5 for me. You know what I mean? It kind of just depends. But ultimately, I enjoyed it. That's what my score is supposed to reflect. It was a really strong debut by Sofia Coppola. Like really great performances. Just a very subtle and moody sort of film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you?
I'm struggling between the 3.5 and 4. I kind of feel the same way. I guess it would depend on like my mood. I guess when I did, so I ended up having to watch it twice because we were supposed to, full disclosure, we were going to cover this at different times. And thankfully the movie isn't long, so I was able to watch it twice. I was cool with that. It's only like 97 minutes, so it's not like it wasn't a chore to like sit through. As an experience, I'm comfortable with giving it a 4. Okay. Like, I really like got caught up in like the dreamlike nature of it, and like I really felt like I don't know. It really felt like watching a moving piece of art. So that's why I really dug about it. And it is a really strong debut. Like technically is a very strong debut. I mean, like cinematography wise, direction, the music, everything is very strong. But yeah, you gotta be in the right frame of mind to watch it. It's not like it's definitely a downer, I guess.
Yeah, no, agreed. Like enjoyably so, but yeah, it's not going to put you in a very good mood, I don't think, after after watching.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I would give it a 4, but I did struggle. I was going back and forth between like 3. I mean, if we had like a 3.9 or something, I'd do that, but we're not doing that. But yeah, I would be cool with a 4. And I actually think if you watched it like at a different time in the right headspace, you would bump it up a little bit. To a 4. It really is a strong movie. There's something. It's weird because there's nothing really wrong with it. Like I really didn't like it. I didn't take anything from it where like that was flawed. That didn't work for me. You know, this was weak here. The writing was weak here. The acting was weak here. There was none of that in it. There was something that stood out to me as like, oh, they could have done that better. It really is. It comes down to a feeling, I guess, about how you feel after you watch it, because they're like all the like kind of technical things that we would kind of pick apart, like, oh, that scene didn't work for me, or like, you know, this character didn't work for me. This character's motivations didn't work for me. It felt rushed here. Like none of that was there. Like I didn't have any of those kind of issues with it. You know, it really is a matter of like how willing you are to take in that story, and you know, and what your headspace is at the time. But yeah, as a piece of art, it's beautiful and a really
exactly. Objectively,
debut.
like really, really strong and well made, without a doubt. But yeah, it comes down to like a lot of movies. It's not like exclusive in that, right? But it does come down to sort of like your setting when you watch it, your headspace, maybe more so than a few others. But yeah.
I always like to like read a little snippet of like the reviews at the time for some of these movies. The New York Times did not like it. Said Miss Coppola has made a haunting metaphysical celebration of adolescence with the aura of a myth. Yet on the surface, there is something wrong with this picture. How can a film in which a quintet of apparently normal girls commit suicide possibly be a celebration? And why would a filmmaker attempt to make it so unless she is uncommonly perverse? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I am.
That's one interpretation. Yeah,
a celebration of adolescence. I don't agree with that interpretation at all. That's interesting. It doesn't feel celebratory in any way.
I don't think so either. But like, I guess we have to be like respectful of like, you know, kind of like people's.
It's not wrong. It's an opinion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The LA Times said they praised Coppola's direction, the cast, and the production design, but also noting that while the film is successful in some areas, you need to know that it's also a real downer.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. Says Coppola has the courage to play it in a minor key. She doesn't hammer home ideas and interpretations. She is content with the air of mystery and loss that hangs in the air like bitter poignancy. I think that is the best way to describe it for me.
100%.
And someone from Time Magazine said it's one of the rare occasions when the film surpasses the book it's based on, and included in their a writer for the Time Magazine included in their book for the 100 best movies you've never seen that came out in 2003.
Nice. Okay, so like generally positive views. I think it still has a
it has an 80% Rotten Tomatoes,
77 Metascore. Yeah, like still like I think it's had an endearing score since it's come out, and 7.2 on IMDb. Like it's generally positive review. So it's held up well, and I think it still holds up well. It's like a good watch.
Yep. And oh my God, we got through our April anniversary.
Yes, there we go. Finally, there you go. Now we have still got, I think, all of our May ones.
We have 2 more May. Well, we got through House of Wax.
Right. That's right. That was a May one. Yeah.
We have 2 more May ones, and I will be posting up the June ones soon. We can post those up whenever. So like the June ones will be a little lighter. And they'll be fun. At least none of them are like really heavy, so like they'll be all fun movies for June. But yeah, glad that we got through that. It was a good pick, one I hadn't seen, which is very rare. So
I know I love when that happens.
Thank you for doing that. And I guess this has been episode 242. Jesus, back to the Blockbuster. We're approaching 250. We got to do something for that. Maybe we don't have to do anything special, but like I figure out something.
Yeah, we'll have some sort of like different episode for you guys, because that's going to be a kind of like a minor milestone before the 300, which is going to be a big one. So we'll cook something up. I guess we don't have much time between our scheduled episodes. We'll have to set that aside. But yeah, that is fast approaching.
Yeah, it's a very busy time at Back to the Blockbuster, behind the scenes and just our lives in general. He pointed out earlier, it's the summer. We're all very busier during the summer, like
Mhm.
between work, but also just activities with your friends. And it's nice out. It's very nice here in sunny Southern California by the beach. So like it's
Yeah,
not that I don't want to be home watching movies. It's it's part of my work at least, but like I don't know. The summer has always been like a tougher time to like get
it
these
is.
things in because like there's more incentive to be out and not just out for like one day. It's like, oh well, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday
Yeah,
kind of thing. So
exactly.
but we're getting these out to you as quickly as we can. So like there was never any talk to scrap this April anniversary. We knew we were gonna do it and get
Yep.
it done. Um and also it's our show, so we can do it on our own timetable. So whatever. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we don't answer
Uh
anybody.
yeah, just ourselves. But if you like what you hear, guys, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you want to listen to us. But if you want to support our podcast network, the Playlist Studio app is where to go. So you can get it from your iOS store or Google Play Store, depending on your device. You can also look us up on our YouTube channel. We promise we'll be putting stuff there, more stuff there soon. Again, busy summer, but we have more stuff that we probably will be adding once these other behind the scenes things kind of kick in a bit more. Um, and but we are very excited. I know we keep teasing what these things are, but we are just very excited because like it just shows that the show is growing, and
Mhm.
we have you guys to thank for that, for listening to it, and for making our podcast network believe that based on who's listening and how much you guys are listening, that the show is strong enough to do what we're about to do next. So thank you guys for helping out in that, because we would just be talking to ourselves, which would be fine. I
Which
could
is,
talk to you guys
I
about movies.
honestly would love. I would do it anyway, even if nobody was listening.
Yeah, I
We
would carve out an
appreciate you
hour to talk
guys.
about movies with Jackson like anytime. So like
Any day,
even if it wasn't you, if
on
you
a
guys
weekly
weren't listening.
basis, forever.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do
yeah, but
appreciate you guys that come back and tune in every week and interact. It's it's a big part of why we do what we do. So thank you guys for tuning into another episode. And there's 241 others for you guys that are new to the channel to go check out and enjoy.
yep. All right, and until next time, my friend. Thank you, Jackson. I will be talking to you a few days about another movie.
Yes, as
That's
well
going
as
to be a
some
fun
news to
discussion.
kind of yeah, it will
Yeah, some
be.
news. Yeah, don't talk about it with sadness. You're gonna have a little bit of sadness when you're talking about it, but like, uh, it'll be interesting, for sure.
Yeah,
But like, looking
no
forward to
doubt.
that in the next few days, and a lot of news, where there wasn't a lot of news earlier in the week, and then Hollywood got crazy, especially you, Blumhouse. Like, you guys were like
Yeah.
out of nowhere. We're like, hey, like we got stuff to talk about. So yeah, we'll be doing that with you guys soon. And yeah, until next time, thank you, Jackson, on this lovely Thursday on June 5th. And I will be talking to you soon.
Yep. See you later, buddy. And thanks, guys, again for listening. We'll see you on the next one.